So I have a bunch of subjects written down on this notebook below me, and one of them says single parent family, and I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to say about that. I'm gonna talk about it anyways. I was born in New Orleans, and my mother packed my sister and I in the car. She didn't pack us; she seated us in the car. When I was 4, my sister was 1, and my mother and father separated, and my mother drove us all the way up to Minnesota. Total culture change, total change, everything change, all of that. And for me being 4, I can see it, I know what's going on, I'm cognizant of it, but I don't exactly know what's happening and why it's happening. And so how that's impacted me as an artist and a creative, it has impacted me. It's been unbeknownst to me. It was unbeknownst to me for a long time, and I didn't necessarily think that my child had anything to do with the art that I'm doing or what I'm saying. And I would even write stories. God, I think it was 6th grade or 5th grade about two-parent families and them being special and like sorry, I got the mic pack. I can get that out there. And them being particularly special and dreaming about them. And my mother would read the stories and be like, what is this? What's going on? And it's just my story. I'm a kid. I'm just like writing stuff. And then looking back, at some of the songs that I've written and really some of the films that I've made definitely overtly address being raised in a single parent family. It became really apparent to me that was definitely not only part of my experience, but part of the way that I processed art. And just part, not the whole thing. And for me as an artist, a lot of the things that I wrote were things to my mother. A lot of the things that I wrote in disdain were to my father, because he stayed in New Orleans. And I recently, after going to therapy and doing all this stuff and making breakthroughs, I found that the story that I had been consistently telling myself was, my mother's a hero, my father's a villain. And then later on, I was like, oh, Mom, why did you take us from New Orleans and separate us from our father? You're a villain, he's a hero. And I kept, putting meaning on different things and whatnot. And as an artist, just the imagination just like goes everywhere. And for me, it took a long time to get to this point of completing everything. And I really, really, really look forward to like seeing what I'm going to write and how this all processes in me now. Is I called my mother about a weekend ago, and I told her, that was a wild ride. That was a real wild ride. And you did the thing that you felt was best at that time. And I don't blame you. I forgive you, and I hope you forgive me for everything and all that I was. And then I called my father, and this was a tough one. Whew. My father is a very serious man. He's a serious dude. And God, he's so amazing and has accomplished so much in his lifetime. It's just stories, that guy has. And I called him and I said, hey, here's some things that happened to me as a child, and here's some things that happened to me as an adult when I spoke to you a certain way, like you were the villain in my life. And I just wanted to tell you that I love you, I forgive you. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing. And dude, I know that you weren't really given a fair shake, but when I look at it now, you're actually one of my heroes, and I look up to you. And I say the same thing to my mother as well. And it took me a long time to get there. And as an artist, how this affects my process is that there was a lot of unbeknownst reconciliation going on in my writing and in my films and whatnot. Like, if you look at the Van Duzens, it's like all about reconciliation. I mean, there ain't a bit of it that ain't reconciliation. And it's unbeknownst to me. I didn't know that I was doing that. And so it's really something to look back at all your work and say, whoa, that's the story I was telling that I didn't know I was telling. And it's something else. And it's really, really, I I think it's extraordinary to be able to get back to that and actually complete those relationships with people and say, you know what, actually, I was being a complete prick that whole time, and I'm sorry about that. And I hope you forgive me. And I'm saying right now that I forgive myself. And you know, that tying it back to being from a single parent family, there is an event that happened that made the single parent family, and reconciling with that is tough, or just engaging with that story is tough. And I encourage everybody to tell their story, you know, because we get a lot of understandings of love and relationship from our parents, because it's the first relationship we have, usually, or our grandparents or whoever we're raised with. And it's important to touch on that and really address that as an artist. You may not want to put it out, you may not want to say that poem, you may not want to put out that film, but you know, approaching it and processing it as an artist, I think, is extremely important. And it took me a damn long time to get to this place, and I can't wait to see what happens after it. So that's my story, being from a single parent family and processing things with my mother and my father. Now, I don't know what that means to you. I don't. I just thought it would be important to say it in a video and put it out to people, because I think, I don't know how often people talk about it and whether they do or they don't. I think it's important to put it out there if you're feeling it, or if you haven't talked about it, to, you know, possibly complete it, you know, address it, or sit down and talk with your parents and work that out. So yeah, do that. And for me, I'm just looking forward to see what happens next. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the comment box below. Please check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ToussaintMorrison. You'll hear and see unreleased tracks and film, and a lot more videos on process and behind the scenes stuff. And I just got a lot of stuff coming up in that Patreon, so I'm excited for it, and I hope you check it out. And thank you so much for watching this video. Really appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one.